You're watching Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney, Southwest Florida's retirement television. He's an author, a radio host, a fiduciary, and Southwest Florida's premier investment advisor. Here is Senior Investment Advisor Eric Kearney.
Welcome once again to Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza, Retirement Wealth Advisors right here in South Florida. I'm your host, Mike Spangle. Fellas, how you doing this week?
Good morning, Mike.
Ready to go? Oh, that was an easy.
That was not on purpose.
We didn't even plan that. Huge program we've got here today that you have put together. We've got some of the retirement pitfalls. And these aren't the retirement pitfalls of your parents or grandparents. Retirement today is completely different. In fact, Eric and Joseph like to say a phrase called the modern retiree. It's modern retirement. It is totally different than it was 20 or 30 years ago. If you even just think of technologies like our phones, automobiles, TVs, different than the living rooms of 40 years ago, right? Yeah. So we've got plenty of pitfalls today to worry about. Only 28 minutes to do it. Where do you want to start out? Which one first?
Let's talk about inflation. It's on everybody's mind, right?
All right.
So, I mean, is it just me or is life just very expensive anymore? It is unbelievable, Spike. I mean, it's on everybody's mind, you know, and like, I think over the past year, Joseph and I are tired about talking about inflation because we factor it in every single year, but nobody cares about it until it's right in your face.
Yeah.
But it is expensive.
Yeah, and it's not, well, this is what I still need help with. I believe we talked about it in another program, is that the inflation number does seem to be coming down. I mean, It was at its highest in 40 years, 8.9% a little while ago. It has come down, not quite in half, but close to it. But I go to the grocery store, I'm spending the same $300, and why does it also seem like my bag of coffee is smaller?
Yeah, right.
What's going on? The prices are still up there.
That's right. So the issue is now is that now all of a sudden you have a different kind of inflation, right? And so what's happening is that prices are sticking, and the media keeps telling you that inflation's coming down, but nobody really sees it in there. So that is a concern for everybody. And in the state of Florida, we are in the highest inflation state of the United States. It's for a few reasons. Number one, everybody keeps moving here. So our housing, no matter if you're buying a house or you're renting, is through the roof. We have some of the highest rents in the country. They're not coming down. And everybody thinks that the real estate market is going to reset. It's not.
No, I'm sorry, I don't see housing prices coming back. Just like we're not seeing automobile prices coming down, and just like we're not seeing my bag of coffee come down.
Right.
The prices, I think, are relatively set. They could come down a little bit. Right. But with interest rates as high as they are, and a supply low right now, we're not really going to see that ability to downsize down here. There was also something interesting I read, and this is totally off script from both you guys. I don't know if you guys saw this article. It was one of the major insurers saying they're not going to insure new home builds because it's becoming too expensive. So this creeping up of inflation is hitting everywhere, from our cost even to our home insurance.
Yeah, and the one thing that's not helping with that either is the hurricanes. We've had 2 hurricanes in the past few years, and they've been really detrimental. 358,000 vehicles were wiped out between Florida and North Carolina. It was almost $71 billion in vehicles. So that's going to affect how much we pay for auto insurance. But it's not just homeowners insurance, it's renters insurance, it's flood insurance. And these things are going up, and they are not coming down because, as Spike said, a lot of these insurers are leaving the state of Florida right now. So what we're seeing is that, you know, people are moving in, which is okay as long as they leave by April 1st. Right? I mean, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of the rule. If you move here, you have to leave April 1st for about 5-6 months, and then you come back. That's the way it works.
And as people are coming into the state here, a couple of things. They might have policies that originated from out of state. Joseph, if we've got people who have just moved here who are planning on retiring here, do we need to review these documents?
Yeah, everything, especially when we go into estate planning as well, looking at things like wills and trusts. You want to make sure that those were done in the state that you're living in now. So for sure. And, you know, we're talking about homeowners insurance and taxes on homes and how everything is going up. And it made me think of a point of, you know, a lot of people in retirement, they want to pay off that mortgage on their house, right? Because it's a big debt that they're like, oh, I'm mortgage free finally. Well, over the past 2 years in Florida, we've seen where taxes and homeowners insurance have gone through the roof. And it's even for people that have their home paid off, there's no longer a mortgage on that, they still have these massive expenses that are costing them money. And it's funny because if you think about it, if you have a fixed mortgage rate, that's really your only fixed expense in retirement for that period of time that you know. And then once you pay that off.
I am so glad you brought that up, because sometimes right before the finish line of retirement, people want to pay that off. Look, there's this other popular financial personality, not as big as yours, but there's this other guy out there. They always say, pay off your debt, live your life debt-free. But here's the thing, when it comes to your mortgage, if you're at a 3 or 4% interest rate before these 7 or 8s, do you think that people should take money out of an investment account or that cash account or that emergency account to pay off 30 or 40 grand on their mortgage before they go into retirement just to be debt-free?
Right. Like I said, if you're at a 3 or 4% rate of return, or excuse me, interest rate on your mortgage, then why are you pulling money out of a future income-producing asset to pay that off? Because especially in today's environment, if you're not making at least 3 or 4% average rate of return on your investments, well, then something's wrong in a whole different ballgame. But you should be producing more a rate of return than that over that period of time. So why deplete that to pay off really your only fixed expense in retirement that you know is going to be there, right? That doesn't inflate either. Because taxes and insurance, as we've seen the past 2 years, have gone through the roof.
Joseph, you're on fire, so I'm going to stick with you right now. Market declines. We talk about some of the pitfalls in retirement. There's one of two ways that I think most people go in retirement. They either say, I don't want to have any risk at all. I'm going over to safety, and especially with some of these higher interest rate and the savings accounts, CDs, overcorrecting to safety. Or coming into your office and not realizing how much risk they're taking. How do you help people guard against market declines, both the ups and the downs, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, we know the market's not going to be up every single year, so we want to do something about that to protect the downside of that portfolio. And when people come in and sit down with us for the first time, we'll ask them if they're working with an advisor and maybe we're going through a tumultuous time, well, what was done in the portfolio to manage your risk, or what was done to protect your downside? And they'll say something along the lines of, well, we were told, you know, just stick with it, everything comes back eventually. Everything comes back eventually. It's not a game plan, right? There's no strategy to that. Because I can tell you one thing is that when we're going through tough times in the market, Eric and I are going into meetings with our clients and we're going over the portfolio with them and saying, hey, here are the moves we made in order to better manage your risk, or in order to protect your downside even further. And whether it was something that we put into place before the market even decided to decline, or if it's something that we just did through active management, I think that type of management is the bare minimum that somebody who's going to go out there and hire a financial advisor deserves.
Eric, as the founder of the firm, I just wanted to ask you, before we go out to break, we are bringing up the pitfalls, but I always like to even wrap up segments on a positive note. By doing a review, the inflation you were worried about, we feel these numbers are set. What can a review help with somebody sleeping at night so they're not worrying about this?
Right. So a lot of people want to know, Eric, where do I exactly stand? I don't think something's right with what I'm doing right now, and they feel like something is a little off. So when you give us a call, get a second opinion, get a second set of eyes on that. We're going to go through, we're going to take a look at your income plan, your financial plan. We're going to see how up to date they are. We're going to see if your current portfolio is relevant to these times. We want to make sure that you are considering inflation and that you have that you've been outpacing inflation for the past 10 years. This is crucial. You're getting into retirement. This is a solid time to sit down with somebody and make sure that you're in a very good position to make sure that you take care of all these issues before they become a real issue.
Folks, you can call the phone number down at the bottom of the screen. You can schedule your own portfolio recovery review. The hurricane recovery for your retirement review. Call that phone number. When you do, we'll schedule an appointment. That phone call is going to go to a secure call center. We'll schedule an appointment for you to come into the office, and we'll take a look at your portfolio, your assets, your taxes, your estate planning, Social Security, whatever else is on your mind. Or if you like, you could open up your phone to the camera function, point it at the black and white box right underneath my hand over here, and click on it. It'll take you over to a landing page. You can schedule your own appointment right there. More retirement pitfalls. Do you have an income strategy? When we get back, right after this.
What does your retirement look like? Is it filled with travel, spending time with family, uninterrupted rounds at the golf course? Or are you too worried to even think about your hopes and dreams? Eric and his team can answer your questions with a complimentary review of your retirement and income plan, and it all starts with getting to know you. They'll do exactly that by going over your current strategy to expose the weaknesses that may exist in your retirement portfolio. Plus, they'll explain potential risks and possible strategies to you in easy-to-understand terms and help get you reacquainted with your portfolio and income strategy. Once they understand your retirement goals, objectives, and dreams, they'll work to custom build a retirement plan to help ensure that you cannot outlive your income in retirement. Because every dream needs a plan. Call Eric today and schedule your visit. You only retire once, so let's get it right the first time.
Welcome back to Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza of Retirement Wealth Advisors right here in Florida. I'm your host, 𝙍𝙚𝙩𝙞𝙬. Today we're talking about today's current and modern retirement pitfalls. We just heard in the message that played previously about having a plan. What about folks who wait too long to put together a plan, not even making changes to a plan, not even knowing if they have a plan, Eric?
Yeah, I think there's a fear of failure out there. And I think that people are too afraid to understand their actual financial situation. And the one common denominator is that when people finally give us a call, they're not afraid of us, they're actually picking up the phone and calling us. What they're saying is, Eric, I wish I did this a long time ago. I knew I was putting this off. And when it comes to financial procrastination, it's actually more of a problem of that emotional regulation, that we're getting emotional about something. It's not time management. And so people think, oh, they're a procrastinator, they put things off, and they're bad at time management. There's something that's emotional that's tied to your resistance to pick up the phone and call. And there's a lot of people who get very overwhelmed by this. I actually have a friend that tells me, I don't do money. Now,
Don't do money.
I don't do money.
You do it every day of your life. You do it in some way.
Every day, right? So every time I see her, I'll text her during the day, remember, I don't do money. It's the funniest thing that I've ever heard, because we all have a lifestyle, right? That money funds our lifestyle. So when people say, I don't really want to do financial planning, I don't really do money, we all do money in one way or another. Money is what drives our lifestyle. Money is what drives our goals, our objectives. You want to go on vacation, you need money. So everything really is surrounded by financial planning. And there's a lot of people that say, look, spending time with my family is crucial, but I want to make sure that my money can provide for that lifestyle.
Right. And that's what I want to ask Joseph there. I've got money in my investment accounts. I'll be turning on the Social Security. Why do I need an income plan? The income plan is I'm going to spend what I need every single month and hope that I don't run out.
Yeah.
What does an income plan look like?
Well, just what you said, hoping you don't run out, right? That's not really a plan. You want to make sure that you know what that number is that you're actually allocated to spend from that account a month, right? And then the plan is also going to help you build the investment approach that you should have for that investment account as well. It depends on how much risk you want to take, or maybe you could be a little bit more conservative. It all depends on your situation. But ultimately, the goal is to make sure that it's sustainable, right? What we're building with the income plan is sustainability, so we know that we're not withdrawing too much money, or maybe in a situation where you were taking out a little bit too much, you were too conservative, and now that income plan shows you, hey, you can spend more money in retirement, right? Because if you don't spend it, somebody else is going to spend it eventually, right? So really, the income plan is just to give people that confidence and security in retirement that they're not going to outlive their money.
Maybe you guys could talk to me about the actual tools, because procrastination is part of the unknown. When we don't know what's going to happen next, or we don't know what the outcome is going to be, we put things off. It's part of behavioral finance, exactly what you've been talking about. So, nuts and bolts, what does an income plan look like? Is it a printed sheet? Is it a dashboard that you can share with your clients from home? And if you print out something like this, and here's my income plan, what if things change 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years down the road?
Right.
How does the income plan live and breathe, actually?
So what's interesting is that on this show, we always talk about the financial plan. We update the financial plan. We update the income plan. We're updating your portfolio. So I had a very tough client from Fort Myers who comes in my office one day, and she's like, I have something to talk to you about, Eric. And I'm like, yeah, well, what would you like to talk about? I want to see everything updated. I'm like, okay. So actually, Joseph had come in about 3 minutes later, brought down everything after he printed everything off. Here's this, we updated these numbers, we updated these numbers. And she's like, I don't even want to see them, I just want to know you updated them. I'm like, really? But it's important because a lot of people don't know that, right? And we're updating their financial plans all the time because things are moving. You've got inflation, interest rate, recession, no recession. There's so many different things that are moving on around the world. You know, the markets have been all over the place. So we're constantly updating all of your data. We want to know, as a good financial advisor, we want to understand that what we're building is going to suit your lifestyle. We understand what your goals and objectives are. We understand what your income needs are. We understand when you're going to be taking out your required minimum distributions. We're taking all this into account and putting it into a plan. We're taking all this data that is all out there. We're incorporating and importing all that data 24/7. And we're trying to build a pragmatic plan for you. It's not always perfect, but people value progress over perfection. They want to know, okay, everything's not going to be hunky-dory all the time. There's going to be financial hurdles, but we're ready to be able to jump over those. This is what the process does. And there's a lot of people out there who don't have that process, or they had a financial plan written 5 years ago. The way that the markets move, every quarter is different. So your financial plan is going to look a little different every quarter. Imagine what it looks like over a year or even a 2-year period. It's significantly different. There's a lot of calm that is brought in when you're putting people through a process that is built specifically for them. Again, I appreciate the team that I have. These guys are great. We are the most dysfunctional, functional work family ever. Possibly in Florida. But you know what? They know how I feel about them, and I know how they feel about me. And when it really comes down to the client, everybody has this very strong passion for trying to put that client in the very best position that they can. And again, it's not always easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. There's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, but the client finally knows that we're in a good position.
And that's the point, is that you're doing the work and the effort. You're taking that onus off. So for the person, we're not using the word procrastinating in a bad way, for the person who's been putting it off because you don't know where to get started. I mean, once you start digging into this stuff, when do I take the Social Security? Maybe you've already turned it on. Do I look at things like annuities? How do I figure out the fees that are inside my investments? How do I get tax efficient? Oh my gosh, I've heard these guys talking about Roth conversions. You become overwhelmed. But you just said doing the work. Is that part of the message that you would like to say to anybody watching the program? Let us help you with that so you're not overwhelmed?
Yeah, it's the basis of what we work with our clients is education, right? You're educating the client first to discover what they really need for them, right? And it's some people maybe not understand finances as well as others, but I feel like that income plan, that initial one at least, it brings everybody on the same page, especially like we're talking about spouses. It's going to bring the spouses together. We can look at a plan for both of them instead of just one person, and it helps people understand where we're coming from and our basis of recommendations for, hey, you might have a tax problem. Look, you know, it's very easy to see it on a visual aspect as well. Look at where your taxes are going to be. This is why we're suggesting a Roth conversion, or we need to build in a stream of guaranteed income because it lowers your volatility. Whatever it may be, it's all going to be shown to you through that income plan. And you can never really help someone's situation without building that income plan first, because there's so many variables in retirement. It's impossible to put somebody in a product or try to push something onto them without building out an income plan first. And I think that's what people crave now. You know, they don't want to be sold a product anymore. They want to be provided a solution through that income plan. Right,
right. Do you guys know of that big grocery store that has a membership, and you go in and I'm not going to say the name because we don't need to advertise for them, but when my girlfriend says that name, say, honey, we need to go to here. My eye roll, oh my gosh, we're going to be in here it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And then I know, because it's got it actually in the name of this place, cost. It's gonna cost me a lot, right?
At least you save on the hot dogs, though.
That's right. The hot dogs, that's right. The great stuff. Eric, is there a cost to come in and start this process? Is it overwhelming? Am I going to feel like when I walk out of that grocery store with a big, huge cart of stuff like, oh my gosh, overwhelmed? Or do you take on that work for folks?
Yeah, so the nice thing is that when people come in, within minutes, they feel relieved that they actually came in. We're greeting them at the door, we're sitting them in the conference room, and we're just having a conversation. It really isn't overwhelming at all. We're actually just getting to know you and understand where you're actually coming from. And there's a lot of people that will talk to Autumn or they'll talk to Donna, and what they're doing is they're kind of explaining their situation a little bit. So I don't think people are as overwhelmed once they come in there, and they're actually appreciative that they're doing something about it.
We've got to go out to a quick message break here. Folks, don't go away. This is a message here from the group at Retirement Wealth Advisors. But if you want to get started on your own, no cost portfolio recovery review, just give us a call at the phone number below. Watch this message. We'll be right back after this.
Retirement Wealth Advisors with Eric Kearney.
Are you overwhelmed by recessions, elections, and corrections? Believe me, I get it. And on top of that, who's more frustrated with the financial industry, me or you? If you're in a financial no man's land, give us a call today. Let's get that conversation started.
Retirement Wealth Advisors.
Welcome back to Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza of Retirement Wealth Advisors. I'm your host, 𝘍𝗡𝗍𝗏. We're talking about some of the pitfalls, especially for today's modern retiree, that we're not aware of. You know, back in the day, I can't think of either of my grandparents that actually had long-term care policies.
Right.
I know now they've become very, very cost prohibitive, but can you plan for a long-term care event at the time that you need a long-term care event?
I think there's a lot of people that procrastinate in that department as well. No one has forecasted how much long-term care is going to cost. The other issue is in between that, in between retirement and in between long-term care, now all of a sudden you have healthcare issues. Fidelity does this study every single year, and on my radio show, almost every week, we talk about the cost of that. And Spike, this is staggering. The average couple in retirement is going to cost them $315,000 just in healthcare alone. That's not covered by Medicare. And then all of a sudden, when they get up to long-term care, that's going to be the cost. So now all of a sudden, we're factoring that into the portfolio on top of their income, on top of the required minimum distributions. We're factoring in that long health care. And so there's a lot of times where we have to think about that way before the actual event happens. With financial planning, you have 3 different events. You have the anticipation of the event, you have the actual event, and then you have the aftermath. It is not good when somebody calls me and says, my mom went into a nursing home, now what do we do? It's not a good place to be. We're in the aftermath, right?
I'm not kidding. I just came from this live event last week, and somebody, I know they were trying to do the best for their mom, but they said, well, you know, she's been in long-term care, and it's really, really expensive every month. And I'm trying to figure out, how can I transfer the assets over to me? I'll continue to pay the bills, but we also need some help from the state, and I want to get that money. Like, what you're talking about is illegal. You can't do that. They're going to do like a 5-year look back.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You need to do long-term care planning before mom or dad needs to go into the long-term, or your spouse needs to go in that facility.
And again, it's too emotional, right? We don't want to deal with our parents. My mom's 87 years old right now and lives on her own. She wants to be as independent as possible, and she lets us know. So, you know, it's difficult because you're trying to plan for something, but then there's other people that will not allow you to plan for that. It's very difficult.
Right. I know we're shotgunning across a whole bunch of topics today, but long-term care, one of the things that the team here at Retirement Wealth Advisors would like to help you with. But Joseph said he really wanted to talk about this topic before we wrapped up as well. Pitfalls in retirement, not considering your taxes, not doing. Look, most folks go to their CPA beginning of the year saying, I want to pay as little in taxes as possible.
Exactly.
Is that the retirement approach?
No, that's not planning, right? That's just looking at today's rates or today's deductions, right? You think you contribute to your 401k or your IRA, and you feel like that's tax planning, but that really isn't tax planning. It's looking into the future and seeing, okay, what are the future tax brackets going to be, and what can we do to change that today? Can I shift some assets maybe to make those more tax friendly for myself? And if we look at our current tax brackets, they're extremely relatively low to where they've been in history. You know, between 1944 and 1963, the highest tax bracket was 94%, which means anybody that made over that limit amount made 6 cents on every single dollar that they made. And then we take a look at where our country's debt is in and how much money we keep giving other countries and spending on ourselves. And, you know, it's no wonder taxes are going to be going up in 2026, right? There's no really other way around it. The only way that the government generates income is through taxation. And so if we're not doing something about our taxes now before they change and we try to wait until after they change, well, then it's too late and there's not much you can do.
Speaking of those taxes and those likely going up, and so many people going into retirement right now, I want to go a little off our preparation right here. Social Security. You know, are we going to have to tax the American public more to support Social Security? I've always wanted to ask Eric, do you think it's going to be there down the road, 10 years from now?
Right now, currently, Social Security Administration pays out well over $1 trillion a year. The one good news about this is that every congressman, every senator wants one thing, and that is to get reelected. So there's no way that they're going to mess with our Social Security system right now, and it's going to be for a long time. Are we going to see some changes to it? Absolutely. But what we also have to do is start to buffer in other streams of income in for retirees. And a lot of times people will come in and they're like, how can I create more streams of income? And we're actually doing that. Again, it all comes down to the income plan.
There was one thing I wanted to add, especially since you just brought up income. It was one thing that was on our notes, bonds. One of the places that retirees love to go, or at least retirees before, and we're talking about today's modern retirement, is today's bond as safe and secure as an investment choice, as an income choice, as it was 30 years ago.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, I think bonds, traditionally we think as we get older, we should be putting more money into bonds because it's more conservative. And while we do want to make the situation more conservative for you, you don't have to use bonds because they're so strongly tied to interest rates. If we look back to 2022, bonds had single-handedly the worst year in history since we really started tracking historical data here. And the follow-up year wasn't great either. And if you look at that compared to even stocks, in 2022 stocks had a bad year, but that follow-up year was quite a nice recovery. And so the amount of people that got stuck in bond funds and they kept those bond funds going, even though we knew interest rates were going to be going up, but a lot of people out there had the set it and forget it portfolio of, well, this is where I need to be because of how old I am, and they've gotten crushed by bonds right now.
Think Eric, of people who retired last year from what Joseph was saying. The 60-40 portfolio, the bond sector, they both had their worst performances in over 5 decades. Have you been able to help people recover from that? Or is it too late, that 20-25% hit that people took in their portfolios? How do we recover what happened from last year?
So that's a great question. How do you recover from a very down market? You have to take a look at your alpha. What is the horsepower that's actually implemented inside that portfolio? When people come in, we're actually educating them about how a portfolio works. I am an investment advisor, so we specifically work on the investment side of it. That is another reason that we have a financial planning side. There's no way that one person can handle all these different facets of financial planning. The bottom line is that we want to educate you about your alpha, your beta, your standard deviation, all big words, but basically how much risk, volatility, how powerful is your portfolio? How can you actually push through all that volatility? So give us a call today. Let's get that second opinion. We look forward to meeting you.
Today's modern retiree has a lot of pitfalls in retirement to be concerned about. Thankfully, we know we have at least one resource right here. You can call that phone number, get started on your own complimentary, no cost, portfolio recovery review. Come on into the office, or you can use the QR code from the camera function on your phone as well. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with more Retirement Talk with Eric and Joseph next week.
Hey, Southwest Florida, thank you so much for watching today's show. If anything's resonated with you today, or you're really looking for that second opinion, give us a call today. If you're serious about your finances, we're serious about working with you.
Remember, you only retire once, so let's get it right the first time. Have a great week and an even better retirement.